session 5 of the unfair advantage. We are learning how to take all of life's unfair scenarios and turn them around for the advantage that God has for our lives. And we've been looking at the life of Joseph. We've been seeing how God put a dream in his heart, but that dream to the destiny was filled with a road that was very, very difficult. He's rejected by his brothers. He's now put into a scenario where he is a slave in Potiphar's house. And then we get to an interesting part in the story that maybe through your Sunday school growing up, they might have skipped over. Let me give you this story. It's pretty interesting. It says it like this. Now, Joseph was well built and handsome. Come on, some of y'all are right there in your small group and you go, yeah, you know that bird and what it's like to be like that. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." This is Potiphar's wife is now making a move on Joseph, says, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you're his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. I think it's interesting. It says day after day. It wasn't a one-time temptation. It was multiple times over and over and over again. And isn't that how sin works? The enemy doesn't just come at your life one time with one temptation. He keeps coming day after day after day because he wants to break you down so that he can destroy your life through whatever that sin is or that temptation is. But he refused to go to bed with her. And then one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. So she caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. We see in this story that as Potiphar's wife is making a move on Joseph, Joseph shows that he's got integrity. Integrity is an unfair advantage for your life. It's unfair that we can't do all the things that our flesh wants to do. It's unfair that we can't fulfill every crazy desire that comes to our mind. It's unfair that we can't live the way the world lives. But it's for your advantage if you will choose to have integrity in a world that lacks it. Integrity makes a difference. Integrity is the ability to do the right thing even if no one is looking. Who are you behind the scenes? Who are you when nobody is around? We know who you are in church. We might even see who you are in the small group. But who are you behind the scenes? Many people have the charisma to take them to the top, but they don't have the character to keep them there. And we've seen this so many times, not just in the church world, but in the political world, when it comes to businesses, is that people have so many giftings, but they don't have the character and the integrity that'll keep them to the purpose that God has for them. So in a culture where so many are running towards sin, God is looking for people who will run as far away from it as possible and say, "I will choose to live a life of integrity." I have a mission in my life to make integrity cool again, to make holiness cool again. I want to challenge you, up your game on the life you are living. I really believe that if you're going to go up, then you've got to give up some stuff. And Joseph had a decision. If I'm going to go up to the purpose of God for my life, I'm going to have to give up my desires or what would fulfill my flesh. And really, this is what the world needs of the church. Is they don't need another motto to say, they need a model to follow. And that's what integrity is. Integrity means I'm going to be the real deal. The word integrity actually comes from the word integer, which means whole number. It's the idea that it is intact, it's whole. It's not broken apart in different pieces. There's not a church version of you and then a Friday night version of you and then a Tuesday at work version of you. No, it's your whole being is one. You're not compartmentalizing your life. And that's my challenge for you, is for you to be the real deal. And it's integrity. That's the glue that holds your influence intact. So I don't know what God's called you to do, but I know your integrity really matters. So how? How do we be people of integrity? Well, we see it in Joseph's story. Look what he's saying. He's saying, there's no way I can do this. What would my master think about it? He was thinking about the consequences of his sin. And if you don't think about the end or the consequence of your sin, then you will just do what feels good in the moment right now, and then you'll eventually reap the consequences later. Sin exchanges what we want most for what we want now. Let me say that again. It exchanges what we want most, which is probably that dream in your heart, that legacy that you're called to live, that healthy marriage, for what you want now, what your flesh will be fulfilled with right now. In the book, I talk about that Hebrew word aharit. Aharit means the final end, the consequence. And the enemy's primary strategy to your life is to blind you of the aharit of your sin, for you to think, you know what? I can get away with it. Nobody will know. It's not going to hurt anybody, and it will. As a pastor, I've sat in the room with other pastors and then parents and fathers. I've sat in the room with them as they've confessed hidden sins, secret lives, addictions that nobody knew about. And I've seen how it's totally broken everything apart in their life. And I had a moment, I remember it was just even a few months ago, where I was sitting with a pastor as he's confessing his immorality and infidelity to his wife. And as he was sitting there, he's crying, she's crying. I'm thinking about their kids that are just going to be devastated by this. And I had a moment to think, you know what, God? Let me never forget this look on his face. If he would have saw this look on his face, he would have never sinned in the first place. And if I could remember that look on his face, I would never walk through that path that he walked through when it comes to pleasing his flesh. You see, that's what the enemy wants you to do. He wants to blind you that there will actually be consequences to your sin. I had this crazy theory with Joseph's story that in that moment of temptation, would happen time and time again, he thought about his uncle. Now, you might not know the whole story, so let me give you a little background. His father's name was Jacob. Jacob was a twin, and his twin brother was named Esau. And Jacob and Esau fought all the time. Well, Esau was the firstborn. He was the first one out. And when he was the firstborn, he got the birthright. He got the legacy, the inheritance. And one day, while Esau was out hunting, he was so hungry. And Jacob was there in the house and had cooked up some food. And while Esau came in the house, he said, I'm starving. Give me a bowl of that stew. And Jacob said, I'll only give it to you if you give me your birthright. Now think about that. One meal for your entire inheritance. Makes no sense. There's no way anybody would do that deal. But Esau, because his flesh craved it, gave up so much for so little. And the consequences of that one decision reverberated for generations after that. It's the same with your life. The enemy will tell you that what you need for your flesh is so big and so important. It's worth you risking all that you have in your life. It's worth you paying all that you have. It's worth giving up on your marriage. It's worth you sacrificing your legacy. It's worth you breaking your relationship with your kids. It's worth the fact of you building that great company. And what he wants to do is he wants to set you up living a life that is a fraud, living a life that is broken so that he can eventually embarrass you in front of everybody. That is what happens when our character breaks. And I'm going to challenge you. You've got to learn that your character really matters. I see it all the time with pastors who have these moral failures. And that's what I do is every time I see one of those, I grieve in my spirit. And then I go, God, okay, what can I learn from this? Learning from the failures of others is a great way to keep your own integrity. Look how other marriages have fallen apart and go, okay, what can I learn to make sure I don't do the same? Look how other people have totally messed up their business by cutting corners and being secretive and not living with integrity. Okay, I'm going to learn to do it different than them. We've got to learn to be people of integrity. Let me challenge you with this. In a world that is so social media focused, so image focused, your way to have integrity is to be real and vulnerable with people around you. That's why I'm so glad you're in this group, because really life change happens in the context of relationships. And we are all as sick as our secrets. Some of the most frustrating moments in my life is when people end up having, then they mess up their whole life, they mess up their marriage. And I sit there and I ask them, I go, why? Why, when you were dealing with this, did you not talk to me? Did you not tell our small group? Why weren't you real and honest? And many times the reason why is because their goal was to really impress, bring about some false desire that we are perfect. And really, it was only to their demise. You need to be transparent. You need to be honest. You see, people have a right to privacy, but Christians do not have the right to secrecy. I want you to get that. Like there's things in my life that are private, but we can't have secrets. We have to be able to be people that go, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm dealing with. That's what I tell my church all the time. Listen, I've got a lot of issues. So if it comes out to people, they go, hey, man, we hear Aaron's got issues. Everybody's gonna be like, yeah, I know. I'm part of his church. He's told us he's got issues. Why? Because we got to be honest. We all got problems. And when you humbly reveal your issues, people can have grace to help you move on, find freedom. And I really think it's through our transparency and vulnerability that God does some of his greatest work. I know this is a very touchy subject, but when it comes to sexual temptation, financial temptation, drugs, whatever it is in your life, do you have someone to talk to about it? Is there somebody that knows what you're going through? I don't think everybody needs to know your issues, but someone does. You probably don't need to broadcast it on social media, but you need to find a friend, a spouse, a small group where you can get honest with them. You are as healthy as you are honest. Here's some great questions to ask is what's a lapse in character that you've seen in a friend or a family member, or maybe even a pastor that's affected your life? Like you need to know, how did that impact you? What are some blind spots that have been revealed in your past that you can look back and go, man, I had issues that I had to deal with? Whom do you have in your life right now that can identify that issue in your life that you don't even know is there? Who can call it out? In that chapter in the book, I talk about the booger in your nose. I'm not going to give it to you right now. You got to read it. It's great. But who's that person that can walk with you through it? And when's the last time you and God got alone and you said, God, reveal my issues, reveal what I need to work on? I'm telling you, when you have that in your life, God will bring to the surface those issues. And I'm telling you, confession's good for the soul. Find some people, maybe right there, even in your group, you can have some time today to confess. Here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm dealing with. And watch how when we confess, God is faithful. He'll forgive us and he'll cleanse us, meaning he'll make us pure. And that's what I want for your life. I want you to be marked by integrity.